Hello, everybody. I'm Bryan Connolly. I'm one of the programmers for the Comedy Film Festival, and this is the panel Q&A for the Something Sketchy block. And we got some very funny filmmakers and a few very funny actors here, and so we're just going to riff and talk about things for a little bit. Thank you, everybody, for joining on this call. All right, so I think we'll just introduce everyone very quickly. We have Jordan Black, director and actor of Imaginary Friend with Benefits. We have Cody Hedera, director and actor of Knockoff. We have Ashley Cimarolli, director of Believing Bigfoot. And we have Colette Prosper, director of Onions. So I'm very excited and very happy that you're all here. All right, so let's start with you, Ashley. So you made this amazing movie called Believing Bigfoot. And I guess I'm going to ask you, where did this idea come from? All of your shorts today here have these really funny ideas behind them. So where did you come up with this idea?
Yeah. So this film is a mockumentary about Bigfoot when everyone has stopped believing in him and he reverts into human form. And it's devastating. And Bigfoot is searching for his dad and belief in himself. So this all came out of, truly, honestly, my sister's fiance is somewhat hairy and has a history in theater. And I wanted to make a funny little movie. And we were all at dinner, and I was like, his name is Jacob, the star of the film. And I was like, Jacob, I'm getting you a role. What are we doing? And then I'd always been, fascinated by Bigfoot. And I thought, you can do this. You can do this. And so then I just kind of wrote it based on him, really. But then he took it to new heights I never would believe. The whole film was about belief, so I should have known. But it all came from like one dinner out, and my mother was there, and my sister was there, and everyone was just kind of like, that's gold right there.
Do you actually believe in Bigfoot?
I would love to. I think it's sort of like the belief in Bigfoot is the belief in, creativity and childhood. So I would love to. But I am also sort of realistic, and I understand editing exists. But deep in me, I think I do. I'm still looking. And I kind of believe in the Loch Ness Monster too.
Good.
But because I want all the riches in Scotland. But that's just me.
Cody, how about you? Where did this idea come from? Your movie starts in a certain way, then takes a turn. So what was the impetus for your film, Knockoff?
So anyone who lives in Chicago probably has family members who's like, oh my God, you live in Chicago? That's so dangerous. And you're like, okay, calm down. I am a connoisseur of designer handbags. It's a little fetish of mine. I just love them. And my parents are always like, you shouldn't bring those on the train. It's dangerous. So I was thinking to myself, like, what would I do if someone came up to me and tried to steal my purse? I'd just tell them it was fake, So that's kind of how the idea started. And then I ended up writing the actual script for a class assignment. And then I came back to it. I was like, there's something here. It was kind of about like artifice and, desire for designer goods, I guess.
Is it a real Birkin bag in the movie?
Yes. No. I've actually uncovered a small underground ring of counterfeit Birkin bags run out of Beijing. So this is my third fake Birkin bag. Maybe a documentary is coming out about that at some point. But I did not have the budget for a real Birkin.
All right, Colette, I'm going to pass it to you. Your skit short film is so funny and truly wild. So I really want to know, was this based on anything true? Where the heck did this idea come from?
Thank you. And I guess in keeping with something sketchy, I'm in a car in the dark. I guess I kind of look somewhat sketchy compared to everyone who has like nice backgrounds. But anyway, my film, it's a sketch on. I don't want to say that it's based on real life, but it has to do with a dinner gone wrong, and I think that
you also
this is my husband.
she has a candle that's called "It Smells
He's
Perfect Like
husband
My
explaining.
Vagina, Just Like Me." So there's kind of like that whole thing,
Without giving away the premise.
Without giving away the premise, but there's kind of like there's all these vagina candles. They're supposed to smell amazing and they're beautiful. So it's kind of like.
But I don't want to give away the ending. Okay,
well,
all right, no more husband. Okay, so he's also my composer, which is also why he's featured. He's a wonderful musician. Anyway, so
it's kind of turning that trope on its head.
It's kind of poking fun at Gwyneth Paltrow vagina candle, and then I'll just say it's a dinner gone wrong. You probably have guessed everything from my description and figured out what it all is, but it's just like a fun moment. And it was filmed in LA, but when I wrote it, I was imagining being in a New York apartment, and how in an apartment building you can smell everything that's going on. I imagine it's probably like that in Chicago or another big city.
And everybody kind of pokes their head in.
Everybody pokes their head in. Everyone's nosy, and then it just kind of went from there. My mentor, Amy Aniobi, who was an executive producer on Insecure, she's created this mentorship group, and I made a lot of friends through the mentorship group, and they were featured in my movie. So it was just a really fun project to work on, and I'm so happy to share it with you.
Is that an actual candle that you bought, or did you have someone make that for the movie?
Yes, and I credited them too at the end. It was Etsy. It was an Etsy purchase.
Janelle, thanks for joining us. Welcome. Can you hear me?
I was dealing with children, so I apologize.
No problem. So we're just in the middle here. Let me introduce you real quick since you've joined us. This is Janelle Austin. She made the short Life Coach, which is very great, very funny. Where did the idea of Life Coach come from? And can you just give us a little description of what that movie is?
Yeah, sure. So this project came out of my film production practices class at Texas State. I am a non-traditional student. I just turned 50 and I decided I'm going to go back to school to study film. So I worked with Sohaila and Shamora on this, and they said, come up with an idea, the three of you, and make it. So we all kind of sat in a cafe and we brought all our ideas, and nothing was really sticking. And so Sohaila was like, I asked my friend what was the weirdest thing that's ever happened to them, and that they were in New York one time and they saw a streaker going down the road. And I was like, we should write about a streaker. I don't know but what we really wanted to figure out is, why would a person choose to go streaking? Down the way. So we just kind of took that as our anchor, and we put it in a situation where it was just a misunderstanding of some bad advice that he took the wrong way, because he's just so, he doesn't think about anybody but himself, and he takes everything so literal. So we just kind of put him in a situation where he had to take something too literal, and then it ended up that was the choice he made.
All right, Jordan, tell us about your couples conversation gone way wrong and way crazy, and where did this idea come from? And was this also a real conversation that you took to extremes, or where did this idea come from?
Well, fortunately for my wife and I, this is not based in anything real, but basically, it came from an improv scene. I'm from Chicago. I studied at Second City, and one day I was doing an improv scene. I think it was really after I was like, man, I wish I would have said that I was having an affair with my imaginary friend. So, I was just kind of like, all right, well, I got to explore that now. So, I figured out a way to make it work, and kind of figured out some of the kinks, for lack of a better word, in that. And yeah, I ended up being able to make it as an episode of my sketch series, Jordan Black Sketch Symbol.
Was there a point where you realized how far you could take the premise? Like, is there a lot of stuff that was cut out, or was there like, we have to, because it feels like you could keep going with this idea of this affair with an imaginary friend. You could probably fill hours with this. Where was the point where you were like, okay, I feel we've hit it to the extreme of where we can take this idea?
Yeah, funnily enough, I think really the exercise was in how dial it back can I do? Like that was, I think the initial thing that I thought was like, how funny would it be if my wife like got gangbanged by an imaginary like baseball pitching rotation or something? And then I was like, okay, maybe that's okay. All right, hold on. Is that really where we want to go? And so a lot of the writing process for this was just kind of like, all right, how can we ground this more? Like, how can I make this feel more like a wholesome moment, more like a vulnerable time for these two people in their marriage? And so, yeah, I think like a lot of the jokes from it were things that were like kind of, came out of just like, all right, here's the bare minimum, or here's the thing where it's like, okay, that's where we have to call it out. That's where we have to make the word play. But the rest of the things are really just like, how grounded and how real can we try to make this whole ridiculous situation?
And I think that's something that all four of you have that's really great, is you have these ideas that are kind of crazy and wild, but they're all grounded in just kind of, a lot of the movies are just two people, just a small group of people talking, a lot of it in their apartments. And I feel like you guys really, like, there is a nice little humanity and a little, like, there's even like, Ashley, even in your Bigfoot film, I find it strangely touching. Like, by the end, I'm kind of emotionally moved by it. And so I think like, some of these definitely are comedies for sure, but I feel like you could have gone with any genre in your choosing of making a film. So why did you choose comedy over making a short drama or a short horror? And do you think it's hardest to do comedy over any other genre? I will start with you, Ashley.
Yeah, I think comedy poses a special challenge because it's not very universal, and it's just, it's so subjective, as we all know. I think in terms of like, the resources we have, is like, I'm a student and stuff. Comedy can be very hard because I've seen a lot of like, mediocre like drama shorts and like horror shorts, I think, is what students go to the most. But I think comedy really shows like what students are like capable of, or like, it's, if you're interested in comedy or whatever, like, do it, because it's more about like you as a person, like almost a thesis of like, who am I? This is my stupid thing I made. And it's like, if it's actually effectively funny, then it's like, wow, this person's got something here, because comedy's so hard, I think. But also, I mean, I went mockumentary. I don't think anyone else did, but I think mockumentary is the easier comedy because it can look terrible. It's all about performances and like having fun. And so that's why I went with the mockumentary, because I was like, this is just time for fun. I could just roll a camera and tell people to be stupid, and then I've got something golden. That's how I went about it.
How about you, Cody? Same question.
So when I was writing it, I don't necessarily believe in genre. I really just sort of tell the story however it comes out. And 9 times out of 10, people end up laughing at it, which is fine. I'll take the laughs. But, horror and comedy are basically the same principles. It's setting it up for X payoff, whether that's going to be the laugh, whether that's going to be the scare. And even with, horror and comedy, they share the same kind of idea of, there are the 2 types of laughter of recognition and laughter of shock. And you have that as well with horror. I recognize this situation. I empathize with this situation. That's why it's horrifying. Or jump scare, it's shocking. So going into it, I really didn't say I want this to be comedy I want this to be horror. I was just sort of telling the story. And I think a lot of the comedy came from my relationship with my co-star, Lisa Drepstein, who is phenomenal, so funny. Whenever we are together, we just vamp off of each other, and we could go for hours. And having a partner like that is really special. So I think that's kind of where it came out.
Janelle, why comedy over any other genre?
We chose comedy because everybody in our class, they were doing either drama or horror. And so we really want to kind of flip it a little bit. And I do actually think that comedy is a lot harder because you have to get it just right. It's a little tricky because a lot of times jokes will fall flat. And yeah, I think it's very tricky, and it takes a very creative person to be able to pull it off.
So Colette, I'll ask you the same question of why comedy, why are you drawn to that, and is it harder than any other genre, you think?
Yes. Comedy is very hard. Comedy is not always timeless too. There are definitely movies that I grew up watching in the late 90s and 2000s that I watch now and I'm like, oh wow, that was problematic, but I loved it, and it shaped who I am. So I don't know, maybe I'm problematic, but anyway, making jokes is hard. It's hard to make people laugh, and then it has to, yes, to what Janelle was saying, you have to make it right, and then it also has to be sort of it has to be a very basic, simple, easy premise. I find that in pilot writing, I have so many ideas, and I want to put it all out there, but the most winning stories and jokes and sketches, pilots, whatever, is always something that is very simple and easy to grasp, but smart too. Of course, you have Tina Fey that's really great at doing that, and so many wonderful comedians. But yeah, I'm drawn to it because I want to be like them. But at the same time, I mean, I loved Bottoms. That was one of my favorite movies of last year. I think that Emma Seligman is amazing. And it's very hard to do what she pulled off. And it has very absurdist humor. It's not easy, but it's so fun. And it makes you want to do that too. But then you try to do it, and sometimes people don't get it. I love that Cody has the 9 out of 10 score. And also Cody was mentioning horror. I love that too. Barbarian. The Barbarian director is a comedian and made a very effective horrific movie, but it was also kind of funny too. So I'm drawn to it. I love it. I'm very inspired by it. I want to be like these people, and I strive to create something that I find that it's funny, and I hope that people connect to it.
Nice. Jordan, same question for you about why comedy, and is comedy hard?
Well, comedy kind of chose me early on in my life. I realized I was funny when I was at lunch in 8th grade with a buddy of mine, Jacob. I started making him laugh. I started shooting the shit and really felt like, oh, okay, I could actually I could get on board with this stuff. Anyway, I've always had a love for comedy. I can't really write any other genre. It's really I think writing comedy is the easiest, mainly because I'm always trying to make a joke. I'm always trying to find the funny. I'm always trying to release the tension. And so that's something, just about me, where I'm like, yeah, I make a lot of comedy stuff. My series is an entirely comedic series. So not a whole lot of room for horror or, drama or anything like that. But yeah, I think that, one point to Cody, the whole comparison to horror and comedy, I do think comedy has so many connections to other genres, and there's so much about comedy that is evolution, you know what I mean, where it's just kind of a reflection of the times that it was made in, or a reflection of the people or the audiences that existed at that time. And so that's one thing about things aging the way they do is we age and humanity ages and we learn new things. So yeah, I think writing comedy is a lot of fun. I don't really think I'll ever make anything that isn't comedy.
Nice, thank you. So, is it easier to hire funny people or just good actors and direct them to be funny? And two of you are stars of your movie, Cody and Jordan. And then I guess if you weren't the starring in your own movie, how did you find your comedic leads? Ashley, I guess I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I generally think I'll just throw myself in there. I'm shameless plug, you're making a feature film right now with one of my friends, and we have just sort of thrown ourselves in there. And I find that easy because I'm like, if I'm giving it this much time to be on set all the time, I might as well just pull Lin-Manuel Miranda, throw myself in there. And that's what I do. And I find that easy to direct myself because I'm me. But for Bigfoot, I wrote it from my sister's fiance, soon to be brother-in-law, as it were. And I do generally think it's very hard. And my thing is non-actors can be so funny if you give them the space to be comfortable in front of a camera. If they are like out there and comfortable, just like take anyone off the street is what I think. And just if you can be personable with them and make them feel comfortable, that's the funniest stuff you're gonna get. Because actors, I feel like, are just they're methodical in a way that sometimes comedy isn't really. In like, I don't know. I wonder if people agree with that or not, but I think it's fun to just kind of throw people on camera.
Janelle, same question for you.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the times the projects are a quick turnaround. So a lot of the times you're competing for the same actors from the student pool. And so a lot of the times I'll just use my friends. So none of the two main guys were not actors. They were just two guys that I used to work with. And I think they maybe owed me something or something. I don't know. But I just used them, and I did a lookbook of what the script would look like, and kind of gave them some background of what I had imagined. So the French guy was the guy from Talladega Nights, the French NASCAR driver, or not NASCAR. Is it NASCAR? Yeah, the driver, the Sacha Baron Cohen character. And so I said, this is kind of what we're thinking about. And he's French. And so he kind of just took it and ran with it. And so I didn't do any table reads or anything. I just kind of like Hail Married it. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised on how well they did. So yeah, that was just basically getting my friends to help me out most of the time.
Cody, same question for you.
Well, so my co-star in the film is actually a classmate of mine from Second City Film School. So we had been working together for about a year when we ended up working on this one. And, we had built that chemistry and that relationship. So that's kind of where that casting came from. Originally, I did not want to play the lead role. I was going to outsource and hold some auditions, but everybody on my production team was like, Cody, you have to do this. Like, this is so your voice. So I was like, okay, less work, don't have to hold auditions. I'll do it. When it comes to looking for those actors, I think it really goes both ways. I can't say that it's easier with just actors or that it's just easier with regular people. For me, it's all about how they communicate and how I communicate with them. I do kind of speak in a veiled sort of language. I don't try to, but sometimes things get lost in translation. So I need someone who can kind of pick up on what I'm saying and kind of understands Cody language. And on top of that, I really try to get all of my actors to play it as straight as they can, because I think that's where the comedy comes from. Because 9 times out of 10, the funny thing that's happening is not funny to the person it's happening to. And I think sometimes actors can forget that and they kind of like wait for the laugh, So I think there's benefits to both. And it really just comes down to communication for me.
Colette, same question for you.
Okay, so for my comedic leads, I'll split it up. For my comedic leads, they're from my mentorship group. They are working actors. My male lead, he was just recently in Griselda on Netflix and Swarm on Amazon. My female lead was on a show called Grand Crew on NBC. So they are experienced actors. I have worked with. I myself am a non-professional actor. I've been in some sketches and some movies, so I know what it's like to not be an experienced actor. And I also have directed some inexperienced actors before too. I think it depends on what the role is and what the premise is and what that actor, whether professional or not, can bring to the table. The actors that I worked with in my sketch Onions, yes, they are professional actors. I have very silly references. The last moment of the film, my reference was Henry Hill realizing that his wife Karen had flushed his drugs down the toilet, and the emotion that he was showing. I showed my female lead that, and that was my direction. But as a professional, she took it a different way, which I think was probably the better choice. But I still, because I love melodrama, I grew up loving John Waters. So I have very silly references. I want to work with somebody who's game, whether they're professional or not, and bring fresh ideas to the table. So, if you don't have a lot of experience, that's okay. If you have a lot of experience, that's awesome too. But it just, I love collaboration. And I think that to me is the more exciting thing. And you never know what can happen. And so I don't know if I answered your question in my rambling, but I just think that I'm very fortunate to have worked with April and Ricardo for this particular sketch, because it really did call for experienced actors. But I have also worked with non-professional, and I consider myself a non-professional actor, and they can be fun too. We're all fun.
Jordan, the same question for you.
So, in my experience doing my sketch series, I really haven't hired anybody. It's all just people that I'm friends with, colleagues of mine, people that I know that are doing improv or stand-up or sketch. As I go through my life, I just kind of earmark people and kind of go, that person's legit. It's cool. Like, okay, I think that person showed me something there that I could see them doing on camera. And so anytime, I approach a sketch, it's just like, all right, who do I know that I think will fit this part or serve this, role the best? So I think there are some sketches of mine that really call for somebody that knows how to deliver a joke and do it and hit the punches, right? I do think that that's really the case with the star of my sketch, Grace Baylor. She's a comedian here in Chicago. She's extremely funny. And she knows how to hit a punchline. And that's something with a lot of her lines, and even in her more emotional, frustrated moments or angry moments, she has to just point it at you. She has to really, really punch those lines. So yeah, I think that it does depend on the circumstance. I think if I had a budget, I might hire people, that I could really go out and find, actors. But right now I'm just working with people that want to do funny stuff and want to get experience doing that.
So all of your shorts have this kind of grand absurdity to it at a certain point, or through its totality of the running time. And there's many types of comedy. You could have just made a movie about a relationship. You could have just made a movie about a family, but you kind of went to this absurd level, which not all comedy is. So I guess why were you drawn to that form of comedy? Why the absurd? Why something that is so kind of beyond a reality in a way? So Ashley, I guess I'll start with you, since yours is about Bigfoot.
Yeah, I think for Bigfoot, I think there's just baseline comedy and putting Bigfoot as a human in a mockumentary, and that's where it started. So I think, and also like grounding absurdity is always so fun. Like I love like What We Do in the Shadows, that show, and I was really into like Taika Waititi stuff where there's like so much heart, but there's like it's also very funny, and I really wanted to make something that someone might finish and be like, "Oh, that was cute," but also they laugh or whatever. I forgot to shout out my Kendall Roy shirt, by the way. So I'm doing that right now. That it's sneaking into the frame, which is another example of something that's very serious and also very funny. Um, but I really was drawn to just like the premise at first, which is so absurd, and then grounding it. I think it's just very interesting and makes for a very fun watch generally.
Janelle, same question for you. Why why absurd comedy?
I think for us, maybe it's just we just wanted to, like, I guess, shock people a little bit, you know, and like think of the most ridiculous thing of what made this person, you know, do it. And I think utilizing some ideas from like actual real life events, like we pulled out, there was a bathroom scene where they play footsies, and it's from a long time ago. There was, I guess, a mayor had gotten in trouble for playing footsies. So we just were kind of bringing everything out that was kind of sounded weird and threw it all together, and it kind of fit together somehow. And then really highlighting the Austin scene too. So taking this absurd thing that we had thought about and actually putting it out to get real reactions from people on the streets. So that was interesting. But yeah, I think it was just to kind of get reactions and be like, what?
So those reactions were real when the people saw the flasher? Like those weren't actors?
There was a few of them, yeah. But the thing is, he had some shorts on underneath. So yeah, a lot of them were just like, they didn't know. We didn't really tell them what to expect. We're just like, hey, do you mind if we like shoot you really quick? They're like, okay.
Cody, same question for you. Why this absurd premise? Why absurd comedy?
I think I'm just an absurd person. And I think that kind of lends itself to everything that I do. My mind just kind of takes everything to the nth degree. And on top of that, life is very absurd. You know, the saying truth is stranger than fiction exists for a reason. And so many times I'll be watching a documentary and I'm like, there's no way. You know, and it's like, I think using absurdity kind of allows people to kind of take a step back and to see themselves in a different way and to see the situations around them in a different way that feels a little bit more removed and objective. And in that sense, you're kind of able to assess the entire behavior in a different way.
Colette, same question for you. Why your thing you said starts in a real idea of a candle, but then it gets very, very absurd.
Yes. I love the Kendall shirt, the Kendall Roy shirt. Kendall Roy is and the absurdity of your shirt, because it's kind of hip hop too. Like I feel like Kendall would, yeah, like it's amazing. I have a shirt like that, but it's in my cat. It's pictures of my cat, and it says Stella. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm an absurd girl, and like Cody said too, I agreeing with a lot of what Cody says tonight. Life is absurd, and people do absurd things, and sometimes very seriously. Like Kendall Roy, they take themselves very seriously, but you observe them and you're like, this person's an asshole, they're absurd, it's funny, and it becomes funny. Like a Kendall Roy who's a jerk, but like you laugh at him. I love fragile men. I think fragile narcissistic men are just hilarious. There's so many, and I can't think of like my favorite absurd narcissistic men, but they are my favorite, and my favorite comedies to watch. I've just always been drawn to just grounded stories. I love rom-coms. I love stories with a lot of heart, but I also just love just really ridiculous bits. Going back to Bottoms, you have the football team, but like there are these like really wacky like almost like propaganda posters promoting the football team. Like there are all these like little hidden jokes that are just so absurd and unrealistic and ungrounded, not grounded at all. I don't know if ungrounded is a word, but like not grounded at all. But you're in it. You're in the ride. You're going with whatever is happening because it's funny. And I love that. And I grew up watching Jim Carrey movies and Pedro Almodovar. I love melodrama and camp and absurd, ridiculous, fragile men. And I find stuff like that to be really funny. And my story in particular, it is a woman's it is sort of female focused. But it has to do with sort of like, I think that she thinks that she's the shit, and she thinks she's so amazing, and she's surprising her man with this candle. But it's kind of it's a brutal truth that she's served, and it's how she reacts to the situation that I thought was funny, and that's why and in a sense it becomes absurd because she is really upset about what she hears, and it's not what she was expecting. So I'm an absurd girl or absurdist girl, I guess, because absurd just sounds bad. Absurdist girl, because it's a genre. Anyway, thank you for having me.
Jordan, same question for you. Why absurd? Like in your short, also very, very absurd. Like there's not an ounce of reality I feel in your movie other than the feelings. But in terms of what's happening, this would never actually happen to two people, I would think. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like anything that I find funny is rooted in absurdity, and if it's a reaction to something that's real, that's the reaction is the absurd thing. Or if it's the circumstances that are absurd and all the people within it know that it's absurd, but they still are participating in it, that's a really fun thing to explore. So yeah, I feel like that's something just about the way that my weird brain works, is that I'm always looking at the absurd. I always enjoy listening to people or being in normal situations and thinking, how ridiculous could this get? And that's something I think I try to imbue my work with as much as possible.
A lot of people get into comedy. Some are great, some aren't so great, but they try. And but you're all great, by the way. Why making comedy films? Why not just be a stand-up comedian? Why not just be in a sketch group? Or maybe you did those things, but ultimately you've chosen to make a film, at least here for today for us to show. So like, what is it about comedy filmmaking, directing, over just getting your feelings and observances out on stage just with a microphone? Like why did you want to try the harder route of finding other people and maybe money, and you have to edit it, and it's like so much, I think, more. I mean, stand-up comedy is also very hard, don't get me wrong, but you chose to be a filmmaker, which I think is a very torturous way to be funny in certain ways. So why filmmaker? Why comedy director? Why is that your way of trying to be funny? So Ashley, I will start with you.
So I've always been interested in comedy, and I always kind of thought I couldn't do it. I did do Second City in like 8th grade when I was like not funny, and I was like, listen, like this dream has died. And then I've always been interested in filmmaking, so then I go more towards like mixing comedy and other things. I think what's so special about comedy is that I would say Succession's a comedy. Like I would say, I mean, I know formulaically or whatever that word is, it's not, but like it's funny. And what's so great is that it can translate into all these different things. And in film, the art of film, using that to make jokes, like using the mockumentary style, for example, I think the camera is a character, and it's like so funny, just like panning to reactions and stuff. So I feel like taking the crew and taking the art of film and putting it all together, making it all in on the joke is like so much more fun to me, because I'm interested in so much more of it. Like I'm super interested in cinematography and stuff. And I also, stand-up comedy is impossible. I could never. It's so, I mean, you're just out there. It's just you, and having the community and collaboration is, I think, so much. It wields itself to so much more. I think. Not saying one is better than the other. I'm totally impressed by stand-up comics. It's just not where I could find myself. It's frightening, but it's so cool still.
So Janelle, same question for you. And you're someone who's choosing to go to film school later on in your life, which is insane to me, because being a filmmaker can be so hard, because you're trying to find money, and you're trying, like, making a movie is not easy. So I guess, like, I'm interested in, why are you starting film school now later on in your life? And also why are you directing comedy?
I think, well, first of all, I'm able to do this because my husband is very supportive, and I think I am very lucky. So thanks for him for that. But I think, I worked in tech for a very long time, and I had a really close group of girlfriends. And I've noticed that the more that I write, because I love writing, the more that I write, the more I'm writing about the women that are around me, 40s and 50-year-old women. And to be honest, they're like the funniest people I've ever met. We are so gross and disgusting and just downright dirty. And then people always think that men are like that, but I think women are way worse, in a good way. So yeah, I love being behind the scenes, and I'm more of an introvert, and I just like being technical and creative on the back end. So no, I definitely have no aspirations to be a stand-up comic, but I love writing about the stories of the women that I know.
Cody, same question for you. And you said you've done some live theater stuff.
I love theater, but I am like such a control freak, vision, this is what I want, aesthetic. And film has always been the end goal. I was looking for that sports analogy. It just didn't come. And I think I forgot where I was going with this. In film, you get to combine so many different aspects of culture and art, right? You get the visuals, you get costumes. I love fashion. So I think it's a way to explore all of these different avenues that I have interests in. And then on top of that, there's something really cathartic about being very vulnerable and personal on the page, but having that distance of another character that you're speaking through. And it almost allows, two facets of yourself to talk to one another and to see where that friction comes. And I think it's really therapeutic in a lot of ways. And it just kind of, for me, it's a better way than stand up to express myself and to kind of relive my life.
Colette, same question for you. Why comedic filmmaker over other ways of expressing comedy?
So what I keep thinking, the expression, it can apply to parallel parking. It can apply to trying to make it in Hollywood. Get in where you fit in. And I think that people get into, if you want to work in Hollywood, if you want to, and Hollywood meaning it could be Chicago, it could be New York, but if you want to work in, if you want to be known, if you want people to see your work and to know who you are, you want to do as many different things as you can. So I'm not somebody who will stand up on stage and tell jokes. I think that is a gift that people have, that I'm too afraid to do things like that. But I have done sketch comedy where I've acted on stage, and that's totally out of my comfort zone. But I've done it because it helped me as a writer to learn. I also have done podcasting. You have to do different things. If you are a creative person, if you're a filmmaker, if you are wanting to say write on a TV show or work on a stage, you have to have experience in so many different fields, because it informs the one main thing that you want to do. So, I would love to write on a TV show. I'd love to work with, Emma Seligman. I'd love to work with Tina Fey. But in order to do that, they have to see my work somehow, and they might not read my script, but they might watch my 4-minute movie. So, or they might just listen to my podcast. Or if I did have that gift and I wasn't, vomiting in a corner, I would do stand up, and maybe Tina Fey would see my stand up. So it's like, you get in where you fit in. You have to do everything and anything to be creative, to make assert a place in this world. You can't just do one thing anymore. And I would love to star in my own work. I think I love that, writing, directing, and acting in your work. I think that's amazing. And maybe that might be something if I write something that I feel like I could be a good fit in. But that's also another wonderful way for people to know who you are. It's just doing as many things as you can, but without being inauthentic. It has to be something that you are like. I like talking, as you see. I'm rambling. I talk, so I'll talk forever. Also, I'll do a podcast, but I'm not going to stand up on stage and get booed, because I'm just like, trying to find my words and rambling. But I'll ramble and try to find my words talking to you. So so anyway, get in where you fit in.
Jordan, a question for you. Same question. Why filmmaking? You've also said, I think before we filmed here, that you've done a lot of sketch stuff and theater stuff, and you've made quite a few short films now. There's a lot online. So why filmmaking? Why the jump to comedic filmmaking?
So, funnily enough, I started out as a stand-up. I guess I don't know. I started out as a blues singer whenever I was 5 in my dad's band. But if we're going that far back, right? But my first real this is what I want to do was being a stand-up comedian. And I started at 16 in high school, and I did it for 10 years. And I think my problem with stand-up is just how limited you are to your own character, right? Even if there is some freedom in stand-up where you can portray a character of yourself or a caricature. You look at Larry the Cable Guy, a great example of somebody that's not who that person is, but he's allowed to be that on stage. But he has to be Larry the Cable Guy every night that he goes out on stage, because no one's buying tickets for Paul the plumber dude. You know what I mean? Like that's not his brand. And so that was something really kind of just creatively I always found myself pigeonholed, where I was like, well, I like this idea, or this funny thing feels right, but I don't have that brand, or I'm not that voice on stage. So how would I try to tell that on stage? And so I think that's a big part of why, making films and, stepping out of the stand-up and more into the sketch and improv world. Additionally, I really enjoy the collaborative aspect of all this stuff. I think stand-up is such an individual sport, and it's, everyone talks about the failure and how tough it is to fail on your own. But even the successes are very, very lonely, right? The best case scenario for me was me becoming a national headliner, and I'm traveling, and I have a great show, and then I go back to the Motel 6 and I give myself a pat on the back and, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. It's even whenever you're succeeding, it's still that level of this is only for me. This is only my thing. So that was a big part of why I decided to move from Dallas to Chicago, was to go and be a part of the Second City, and to go, be a part of a team where I can feel like, hey, if we fail, we failed together. If we succeed, we succeeded together, and we were able to help each other do something really cool. So yeah, that's something about, this season of my sketch series. I've really kind of branched out and brought a lot more people in. I hired a great DP, Isaac White, and a fantastic composer, Tim Corpus. And I think that's something that I've just really felt has been the most enriching part of this experience. Has been just getting to work with really creative people and getting to see these ideas that I've got become something unique from what I had in my mind, right? If I didn't have Isaac's eye on the camera, it would have become a completely different thing. If I didn't have Tim's wonderful music in this thing, it would have been entirely different tonally. So yeah, that's my thing.
All right, I have one final question for everybody. What are you working on now? What are we going to see next from you? What is happening in 2024? So Ashley, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I'm working on a feature film with a creative partner and friend from college. It's called The Womenist, and it's about two ladies that become feminists in order to impress a man, which is very classic. And it goes bad.
Janelle.
I'm currently working on a pilot for a TV series. It's about a 50-year-old Latina living in Port Isabel, Texas, and she's a bartender at night. And she used to want to be a marine biologist, but she ends up getting custody of a grandson she didn't know about. So he's a train wreck, she's a train wreck, and it's them dealing with each other together, learning how to navigate the culture in the valley.
Cody, same question.
At the moment, I'm developing a couple of screenplays. The one that I'd say I'm furthest along in development with is called Teammates. It's about a television series that follows a different high school each year, that follows the prom race, and it gives a scholarship to the prom king and queen. So the two only openly gay kids in school decide, you know what, we're going to be the two prom kings. I don't like you very much, but we'll pretend. So they enlist the help of a former romantic comedy movie star who's now working as the school librarian to kind of be their coach. And she helps them along the way. And I'd like to ideally set it to the music of Madonna, but I don't know.
Colette, same question for you.
I'm working on a few pilots. They're in varying degrees of ready, not ready. And I am working with a sketch team through Bold Comedy. I'm in a comedy group called Crop Top, and we write and direct sketches together, which is a lot of fun. And just thinking up other news stories as well. But there's one in particular that I've been working on that's been it's called Self-Care. And it has to do with a woman who is the daughter of a former dictator, and she gets into yoga. And so I am working on that, and working on some other scripts as well. And just also just promoting Onions too, which it's so great to be a part of this festival. And thank you so much.
Thank you. And Jordan, finally, the question to you.
So I have 5 more episodes of Jordan Black's Sketch Symbol coming out through the rest of season 2. One that's already filmed and edited. That's kind of the finale of a 3-part mini story thing, Subpartment. That's basically about a guy whose roommate works from home, but that work is working at a Subway. And so there's a Subway in their apartment. Still waiting for the cease and desist letter on that one. But other than that, got a lot of fun stuff queued up and ready to film. Also, I've got an animated project that I am developing right now. I have got an illustrator and an animator on it. It's called Siege the Day. It's a medieval dark comedy with a modern British tone. Essentially, it's a rom-com that takes place during a siege. So yeah, got a lot of fun stuff with that. Gonna release a teaser here in the next month or 2. So
great. Well, thank you everybody for coming tonight. Thank you for answering my questions and talking. You were all Very funny people. Your movies are all great, and please seek these films out. If you can't come to the Comedy Film Festival, hopefully these movies will end up at another festival or online. Just look them up. They are fantastic. Thank you, everybody, and there we go.